everybody, I'm Danny Otto. Welcome into an all-new episode of That Recap Show. Now, before we get into the episode, just wanted to issue major spoiler alert. We are going to be going over everything that happened in the first 2 episodes of Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. So if you haven't watched those episodes yet, you may want to pause this video, head over to DisneyPlus, check out those episodes, and then come back and enjoy the breakdown. Now, with that out of the way, let's start the show!
Poppin' Off presents That Recap Show.
All right, joining with me to break down everything from the first 2 episodes of Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, it's Jon Jon Rico!
With my dudes. Yeah.
I saw you whipping it.
Hey, good show.
But yeah, I mean, get right into this. Look, there's been so much like talk before this premiered that, like, you know, people were kind of dismissing this series because we found out, you know, it's not going to be, you know, our universe is going to be, you know, MCU adjacent and stuff like that. So I was hearing a lot of like negative talk isn't the I guess the right word for it, but just a lot of people kind of dismissing it ahead of time.
Lack of anticipation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was pleasantly surprised. I really enjoyed what we got so far from this. That not only that, but like we got 2 full episodes. I was also thinking that, you know, because we saw the release schedule ahead of time before the premiere also, and we were never getting a single episode at a time. So I was also under the impression that maybe these were going to be a little bit shorter, but we're getting full episodes every single time. It's like when you're a little kid and you're trick or treating and you go to the one house and they give you full bars and you're like, holy shit.
Yeah, the ones with the king size bars.
Yeah, it's like that's what we got. That's what Marvel Animation gave us for this. But I mean, getting right into it, major Saturday morning cartoons. I kind of want to wait until this entire season is done, and then legitimately rewatch it, sitting in front of my TV with like a bowl of cereal or breakfast or something like that. Because that's just what I got. I mean, and they did it on purpose, obviously, but like the theme song, it's a mix of like an old school Spider-Man theme song for a cartoon, and then it transitions into a brand new kind of work of Spider-Man theme.
Yeah, there we go again, swinging through the city so fast you can barely notice him.
And it's great. I like both aspects of it, but I also like having that like transition in the actual intro like theme song itself, because it's showing that like, hey, this is going to be in the style of a Saturday morning cartoon from like the past, but also it's going to have like all of this new stuff in it and stuff like that. And that's basically like a very, very, you know, overview way I can kind of describe the series to anybody who hasn't watched it. Is it looks like an old school cartoon, like Saturday morning cartoon, but then it has like these more updated themes and these more updated, you know, characters and you know, Easter eggs and all this stuff. And I just, yeah, I was pleasantly surprised. I know I've said that in the past for other series, but like, yeah, now I'm in. I like this so far. But Rico, what were some of your instant reactions for episode 1?
Yeah, I thought it was off to a really strong start for me personally as well. I got the same exact vibes, especially when they give you that theme song too. Like they're giving you the nod to like the classic kind of like 60s, like the old school Spider-Man and his friends, Amazing Spider-Man or Spidey and his friends. I can't remember the old school show from the 70s that my dad used to watch, because I remember that right when I watched it with him, that was the first thing that clicked in his head. It's like, oh, it's the old music. That's like, so it's catering to a lot of different audiences because you know, Spider-Man has such a rich history just in pop culture alone. And the show has to kind of separate itself from just being just another Spider-Man show too at the same time. So I always like the way they kind of make little tweaks and adjustments to just make not everything feel like something that we've already seen before, even though it's all still very familiar. So I really like that. I really like the animation style approach for this show. Like you said, it feels like a throwback, but also very modern at the same time. It's pretty much like watching a motion comic. Like if I was reading these old school Spider-Man comics from the 60s, I feel like this is exactly how I'd watch them be moving in my head movies, I'd like to say. Yeah, and I think it's really showcased well, in the scenes where he's swinging around the city, or even like in the action scenes when we're seeing like Doctor Strange fighting Venom, or,
Mhm.
or something like that, or even like his fight with Butane in the second episode is really fun. So yeah, I just think it's a really cool approach, and I think it's something that the Marvel Animation team is doing really well, because each animation show that we're getting seems to be dipping into a different style of animation, so that it gives it its own feel. That doesn't make that's not just like them rehashing certain like styles that they used in the past. So yeah, it's really fun. I'm really enjoying it, and yeah, I think it's just a pretty solid start so far.
Yeah, I totally agree. And you want to get to some episode 1 takeaways?
Sure.
Awesome. All right, why don't you kick off big takeaways?
Yeah. So again, though, going back to what I was kind of talking about earlier, the whole kind of like the tweaks and adjustments that they make into Peter's life that makes it feel familiar but also different at the same time. The mixture of characters that we have in his world already is something that's very different.
Yeah.
Love that his best friend is Nico Minoru from the Runaways, a character who I just was playing in the Midnight Suns game that came out. So she's part of that.
Very cool.
Just like the way that they kind of incorporate some of these lesser known characters into this world, so that we're not just getting we do get the tease of Harry Osborn in the first episode, but we're not just kicked off right away with that friendship with them. And even in the MCU, his friends with Ned. So like he's got different friends in each like little version of Spider-Man that we see. And I think it's really cool. And even like changing up like the love interest. It's like I forget the name of the woman that he has a
I
crush
do too. Yeah.
that's going out with Lonnie. Yeah, but
Yeah.
so like that they're putting in interesting little substitutes so that we're not just being like, oh, it's this person, it's Peter and MJ thing, or the Peter and Gwen. Like we're getting like fun little spins and all that. And then again, getting unique spins on familiar characters like Venom, where he kind of looks almost like a more bug-like, and almost kind of like he's got like a little like Craven kind
Yeah.
of like a fur cup, which is really cool in that fight with Doctor Strange, and I think that's really cool. Whether you're switching up characters like Dr. Connors in episode 2 as well, like the little changes that they're making to little characters, so you're like, okay, I can see where they're going with that, and it's familiar but different. So I like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, exactly going off exactly what you're saying. It's not even just, Spider-Man villains, heroes, and stuff like that they're kind of, changing things a little bit. Like you brought up the name Lonnie and that whole
Yeah,
like
it's
friendship
Lonnie
with
instead of Flash. Like
yeah.
yeah,
But like not only that, but like yeah, you would think that guy would be the jerk and would be like, butting heads with Peter. But like they're actually friends
Yeah.
like in this, which is awesome. Like cuz it's just shifting stuff just enough like you said to kind of make it feel a little bit fresh and to give this things where like, "Oh, I recognize that slightly, but it's a little off." Like MCU adjacent is a perfect term for this because they are just everything's just shifted enough that we can kind of, change the perception of even side characters and characters that aren't like Spider-Man enemies or Spider-Man like heroes and stuff like that. We're literally changing everyone in this just enough so it
Mhm.
feels really fresh. It's so cool that they do that with everyone and
Yeah.
they can do it enough so that it feels fresh, but not so much where it's like, oh, this is very different. It's a way to keep you very engaged because you don't know you want to see what they kind of have shifted a little bit next.
Right, and we have so many versions of Spider-Man in media, especially animated shows. There's been
Yeah,
plenty of shows of Spider-Man in the past, like the '90s one, of course, is probably the one that people fondly remember the most. But yeah, there's throughout the years, there's been a lot of great Spider-Man animated
mhm,
shows. So like, if you can only dip your toes into that same pool so many times before you have to make these kind of adjustments to
right.
kind of make it feel like its own thing. So yeah, I think it does a really good job on that part.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, one of the biggest things that I was kind of trying to I mean, there's so much. Like we got hit with a lot for these 2 episodes, but strictly talking about the first episode, one thing that stood out to me that and it's more of a question than anything. And I know because of the way we had to format this, because we're not doing 2 separate videos, we're kind of combining the 2 episode premiere together. So we're not doing, predictions right away. We're doing, takeaways for the first episode, then takeaways for the second episode, then predictions moving forward for the season. Big question I had from episode 1. Who do you think that person is that the spider that bites Peter ends up like crawling towards and hitching a ride with? Like, who do you think? Like, they keep the focus is there on that person so that you don't just think, oh, the spider, walked away and died. Who do you think that's going to turn out to be?
Probably Lonnie.
I don't think that. You think that was Lonnie?
Could be. I can't remember the shot distinctly, but there's going to be some kind of tie to Peter there. That's going to be, I think, I have a little idea just based off how things have been set up already in these first 2 episodes with Norm too. Like the way they're approaching this, I can see some weird things going on here.
Huh. I didn't think it was Lonnie. I've only seen one video where somebody was kind of focusing on that thing, and they actually went to they tried to match the bag and the shoes in other scenes from that episode, and it was some random guy walking through a hallway at the school, and it wasn't Lonnie. But it could end up being Lonnie. Like, maybe it was just another teammate of Lonnie's, and it really was Lonnie, and that's why we don't see kind of the upper half of the body, so that they could kind of write it in if it worked out as Lonnie. But yeah, that guy was saying, well, maybe it's Scarlet Spider. Who's the one that Andy Samberg voiced in Across the Spider-Verse?
Oh yeah, I think it may have been Scarlet Spider. I can't remember. No,
yeah,
the one who's always like brooding.
Right.
Yeah.
Seeing that it was the same, he's the person I watched, and I apologize because it was just a random video that I when I was scrolling through TikTok. He tried to match the shoes and the bag to a random scene where somebody else was walking through a hallway. But like you said, it could turn out to be Lonnie. Like, that would be kind of it would definitely be a twist that, no one would really be expecting. It would be interesting, I guess. But Rico, do you want to get to episode 2?
Yeah, let's do it.
I'm always going to be wondering that, because there's always these little things that like my brain focuses on, and now I'm always wondering where that spider went, because in most of the other Spider-Man mediums, like live action movies and stuff like that, even into the Spider-Verse, the spider dies.
Yeah,
and pretty much all of them, we see the spider dead. So the fact that we had this one walk away, that's always going to be in the back of my mind for the rest of this season and beyond. We can talk about how many more seasons we're getting to this, but we got a lot of content to be going through for this show. But yeah, kicking it right off. We were talking about this even before we started recording, that these 2 episodes flowed so well, into each other, that it kind of it's tough to kind of have any instant reactions for episode 2, except like more of this where things are just shifted enough where it kind of feels fresh. And the biggest thing I'm gonna point that to is, instead of having like this bully, this jerk in the side character, we have this budding friendship between Peter and Lonnie, to the extent of, Lonnie introduces him to the rest of the football team, wants him to come to the game and hang out.
Yeah,
like,
to gas him up a little bit.
Yeah, that's awesome. And it's something that we really haven't seen in kind of like the early stories of Spider-Man. He's always kind of been, picked on, bullied. He's the unassuming, hero, like in disguise type of thing. So
especially the early iterations of Spider-Man, which the model, like they clearly are modeling this look of him from the 60s one, but then but they give him that feel like he's still got some confidence, like he's capable, and that people like him. Yeah.
Yeah, especially now. You get a whole football team like cheering you up and stuff like that, like pumping you up for an interview for a potential internship. Or I guess an internship at that point. But yeah, I just thought that was really cool. It's just more of the same of showing us that this series is not going to be the exact same as all of the other iterations of Spider-Man. We're going to have things shifted a little bit, and we're going to have, these things that are going to kind of keep us on our toes to see what's different and what's similar and what's, completely has a life of its own, like with the character Lonnie, like I keep pointing to. But Rico, what were some of your instant reactions for episode 2?
Yeah, we've said before that these just felt like one big long episode. So I find myself referencing episodes that I'm not even sure if they're from episode 1 or 2 because it felt like one solid story. And I'm like, did this happen in this episode or this episode? Just like in the order of things of which they happen. But yeah, it flows right in from the end of the first episode right into the beginning of the second episode. Just picks up right where it leaves off, and we're kind of off to the races here. And we get to see more of like Oscorp and stuff like that, and kind of that whole iteration. I love Dr. Whitman, or the old doctor that that's played by Paul F. Tompkins, which I think was really funny. And then of course meeting Dr. Connors in there as well, and just kind of seeing that whole relationship start to build, and the unique the friends he makes at Oscorp, of course, Amadeus Cho, which is a great reference, a character to bring in and into the show as well. And then having the girl from Wakanda, of course, is there. So like they're bringing in those other Marvel elements to just feel like it's not just a Spider show, like we're a Spider-Man show. We have all these other aspects of the MCU, but the Marvel world that we're going to bring into this to make it feel more vast, and the potential for storylines there is just going to be really fun to watch unfold. But yeah, it just more of Spider-Man just kind of having fun doing Spider-Man stuff for now, and also under the pressure of being someone who's got to now be under a internship with Norman Osborn. So now it's really like the catapult to the bigger storytelling of the season. So like this I really like that they dropped these first 2 episodes back to back, because now I'm left like really intrigued for what's going to happen after this now, because now I feel like these first 2 episodes just really set the world up overall. Yeah.
I totally agree. You want to get to some big takeaways for episode 2?
Sure.
Awesome. All right. I'm going to kick off big takeaways for episode 2. And kind of along the same lines that we were talking about, I love every once in a while so far in these first 2 episodes, seeing scenes recreated from MCU scenes. Like 2 that I can immediately think of is, one of Peter catching the car from and stopping it from hitting the bus. That's very similar to the scene that we see in Civil War, where Tony shows him like just a video of it, and then another
same exact action that he does.
Yeah. But then shot for shot is when he comes back in the apartment.
Mm-hmm.
Where it happens in Civil War, where he walks in. He's even got the DVD player, so they had to make an excuse for him to find a DVD player.
Yeah,
and he's got headphones in, and he walks around. And instead of it being Tony Stark, it's Norman Osborn. So we instantly we got a shot-for-shot remake of the MCU debut of our Spider-Man, of the MCU Spider-Man, and then we immediately are shown how this is going to be shifted a little bit, type of thing. And I just think that I'm looking forward to seeing more of those kind of things, where like it's just like, this might look exactly the same, but here's one difference that makes it majorly different. Like you know what I mean? Like I just think it's so cool that they can recreate something like that to make it seem cool, but then go, this is how it's going to be different. Like I was smiling from ear to ear when that was the change. Like I'm looking forward to seeing other small scenes like that where we see changes. And then, I mean, on top of that, I really am interested to see like the group, not only of, characters that Peter's going to interact with, but like what you were saying, where we've got this weird shuffled up deck of, heroes that exist. Because when we're walking through the lab, at one point, I think it's when he was going to Norman's office, he walks back a picture of Norman Osborn and Captain America.
Yeah,
taking a picture together. So we know we know Captain America exists.
Iron Man exists because they have the mirror hanging thing, the little mirror.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So there's going to be like little Easter eggs to find out what characters exist. I don't know if Doctor Strange exists in this universe because Peter didn't know him by name. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like he was like, who is that guy? Like, but we don't know if he was talking about the guy that, Doctor Strange was fighting, or if he was talking about Doctor Strange in general. Like, you know what I mean?
Well, he does
Like,
call him like Strange Wizard Man too at the same. So I don't think he's actually seen Strange before. He just kind of So it's but just, even that way the way they changed up how his origin happened. His origin happens because of an interdimensional fight between Doctor Strange and Venom. So it's like that's pretty wild.
but it's so cool how like like we don't know, like we're basically uncovering this long drawn, like this long mini mystery of, okay, what heroes do we actually have in this universe already released, type of thing. Like, you know what I mean? It's just so, not only that, I mean, we could sit here and figure out what villains we're gonna have introduced, because I didn't recognize a villain from this episode. From
Butane.
yeah,
Yeah.
I didn't recognize him. Like, so, like, I just, it's just so interesting, kind of to we get hints at stuff, because I mean, we got Dr. Connors, so at some point maybe there's going to be a lizard, but like we don't know that for a fact, and I mean it could be 4 seasons from now before we get that kind of stuff. But it's just really cool, and I'm always going to be. It makes me want to watch them over to see if I saw or if I missed any Easter eggs hinting at other heroes, or seeing little things that are similar but different in this way versus the MCU. And so it's just kind of cool to be able to have that in a series and be able to like switch focus around, I guess. But Rico, what were some big takeaways from episode 2?
I think when I saw that scene and the shot for shot remake of the apartment scene, it's down to even the music. It's the same song that plays when we first meet Peter too. Even the very first shot of the first episode, it does the Queen's title track, just like in Civil War as well, where it's just the white text. And so like they're immediately like letting you know. I think I actually remember now that I think about it, when they like pitched what the show was supposed to be. It's essentially a what if scenario of Peter's life if Norman was the one who went to visit him instead of Tony in the MCU, right? So I think that's really like a really cool story approach to take for this show. And they even brought the do a flip guy in one shot too, like just in one little, like him flying over him or swinging over him at one point. That was really funny. But I really just like that whole feel for it as well. Like especially like it's like getting to a glimpse into what Peter's life was actually like before we meet him in Civil War. Even though he probably didn't witness Doctor Strange fighting a Venom like that, but like in this world he did. So it's like it's pretty cool. Like, but like the idea that he could have possibly knew someone like a Nico out there, like there's we might have a Nico or an Amadeus Cho still out there somewhere. So I really do like that. And it's just been really cool to kind of see the way that they're integrating some of these characters in like so organically, and it doesn't feel like that they're forced in at all. It's just like, no, it makes sense for them to be here. So I think all those little like things that were like you said, that the catch in the car, it made me want to rewatch that scene again to see how much they like nailed the details of it. So I just like that they just took like this essentially a whole what if, like it could have just been a what if episode if they wanted to, but they just like, hey, let's make an entire series out of this. And then of course like making it like so I can look at this in like he's Tom Holland's Spider-Man, but now he also looks like the 60s drawn version of the character too. So it's like it's a really cool, again, I like I said for episode 1, it's just it's modern, but it also feels like a throwback at the same time.
Right. Yeah, I totally agree. You want to get to some predictions?
Yeah, sure.
Awesome. All right, why don't you kick off predictions?
Okay, so I guess the show's been renewed up to season 3 already, which is pretty cool.
Crazy.
Which is, it just shows that they like the show and they want more. They want more of it, of course. So I really hope with some of these because we do get a lot of characters introduced in these first 2 episodes, and again, it establishes Peter's world and the supporting characters around him really well. But again, there's a lot of potential there for them to do even more with these characters, like we said earlier, Dr. Connors as potentially the lizard, or even Dr. Whitman, who becomes known as someone called the Wingless Wizard in the comics as well. So the fact that they can play around with newer villains or lesser known villains as well, but also teasing out the common Spider-Man villain, rogues, his rogues gallery, like Lizard and the Green Goblin, of course. We got Norm in this season, so I imagine that it's going to lead to some kind of Green Goblin at the end of the season, hopefully. But even if they stretched it out to like a season 2 or 3, and they just made this Peter Norm rivalry even more intense as it went along, maybe by the third season, where it's like we're in No Way Home status, if this is like Homecoming, maybe the second season can be for like Far From Home, and then season 3 will give us more like our No Way Home kind of feel. So yeah, I think this gives them the opportunity to do some a bigger storytelling. Not we're starting off with some street level Spidey for now, and keeping it simple because he's still just a kid trying to do his thing and learning his powers and having fun. But it's going to lead to a bigger purpose, I'm sure, for him at some point. And I'm excited to see how that unfolds. And I really hope they gave Amadeus Cho his Hulk, because he's known as the totally awesome Hulk. And I would like to see a totally a different version of the Hulk, like Amadeus Cho's version. So yeah, I think that he's a really cool addition, and he's probably one of the more intriguing supporting characters for me after seeing these first 2 episodes.
Very cool. Yeah, I mean, what's awesome is I don't like. Obviously, I mean, I've said this plenty of occasions. I haven't gone back and watched the super old stuff or read the older comics type of thing, and this is making me interested because you're picking up on characters that I'm not even picking up on by their names and stuff like that. So just like you said, like immediately when they did the remake of him catching the car and they walking into the apartment scene, that made me want to go back to Civil War and watch those 2 scenes like immediately type of thing. It's making me want to just sit here and ask you a bunch of questions about what does that person's name mean? What does that person do? What is that? And just like kind of collectively figure out what to look at so that I can also like be picking up on these Easter eggs and stuff. It's just cool to have a show that can kind of spur curiosity to go back to source material and to go back to other stuff like that. And this is what this show is doing by having these little twists, but also having these Easter eggs and nods to other stuff and recreations of scenes from other stuff. It's just, it's really cool when a show can do that, especially in a very short amount of time. We've only got 2 episodes of this so far. So yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, for me, the biggest thing going into the next, I believe we get 3 episodes after this. So we get
3 episodes next week and 3 episodes the following, and then 2.
Oh wow. Okay. So there's gonna be a lot. But going into these 3 episodes, ending episode 2, we did get that oh shit moment, and then cut the credits where Peter walks into Norman Osborn's office and he thinks he's in trouble for leaving the internship and then coming back late and stuff like that. But then Norman Osborn, cold as ever, turns around and goes, "So you're Spider-Man?" Like, yeah. But we don't know. We don't have any reference. It just ends right there. So like
he's been made already. Yeah.
Right. Going right into it. I mean, we could have had, we didn't. And that's where it kind of diverges from, when we have Tony Stark meeting, Peter Parker for the first time. And basically just immediately talking to him and going, "Look, this is you. I know you're Spider-Man."
Yeah,
like
you're the Spiderling, the crime-fighting Spider guy.
Right,
yeah.
Right. But so I mean, basically, there's one of 2 ways we can go with this. We could instantly have Spider-Man and Norman Osborn be at odds, like if he kind of shows his hand as being evil right away, or we could have him take the the Tony Stark like approach to this and want to be like immediately want to help him and be like, "What is this suit? Like what like you need upgrades type of thing," and then have that, and then like you were saying, have like a season or 2 to build this kind of relationship before we have kind of a villain turn of Norman Osborn to become Green Goblin and stuff like that. Or what if this universe is just far enough off that Norman Osborn doesn't become Green Goblin, somebody else does, or something.
Could be
like
Harry
that.
too. Like there's still Harry as a possibility, and yeah, I think that's going to be something that comes into play with that for sure.
Right, but it's just so that was like a oh shit moment. Like I wanted to have more right then and there. I was like, what is going to happen? My biggest guess is that we're gonna have not a recreation of the Tony Stark and Tom Holland Spider-Man scene where he's like pointing out the stuff and everything, but I do think it's going to be something similar to that. I think that's what we're going to get. I think he's going to become kind of an early mentor to this Peter Parker, and have him kind of, this also builds up the, the Osborn internship now is kind of the cover for, going out on and getting upgrades as Spider-Man and doing missions as Spider-Man, with help of Norman Osborn and stuff like that. So,
right. Yeah. And, usually the spider that bites Peter tends to have some kind of ties to Oscorp as well. I think, this one did come out of a strange portal at the same, to a degree. So we don't, maybe we don't know if this is this, maybe like this Norm is maybe somehow orchestrated some big thing as far as like how I think, like, if you can go so far as to like orchestrate the fight between Strange and Venom that happens to it's so weird, like, everything happened the way everything planned so that Peter could become Spider-Man, then he could end up manipulating him to like, do his bidding because he can fund him and get a new suit and all that.
Yeah.
And then it's going to take a turning point because Peter's good, and so he's gonna call his bullshit, and then he's gonna be like, okay, now we're fighting. So it's like, that's gonna be kind of, I was really going into like, after I saw that episode, I'm like, how did Norman like orchestrate all this from the beginning? But that's just like something that I'm like waiting for them to do when it comes to Norman Osborn, because like I'm not going to trust this guy ever.
Right. But that is the interesting part of this series is we know that things are shifted. So it will keep us on our toes the entire time until something is like slapping us in the face. Yeah. Like, we're not gonna 100% know. We just have this past relationship with Norman Osborn going, oh, well, yeah, he becomes a villain. He's a villain. Yeah. He's a villain all along. He's a villain. Yeah.
If he's the guy that like hired butane to burn down the wrong building, that he ends up burning down, like there's so many things I could be like, all right, I can see Norman being behind that. But we're also getting someone like Kingpin later on in the season too, played by Vincent D'Onofrio, which I think is gonna be pretty great. And even Daredevil's gonna be played by Charlie Cox. So I'm really excited for them to incorporate some of those guys into there too. But yeah, everything in me right now just thinks that Norman's gonna be orchestrating things for his own benefit.
I mean, which could totally turn out to be true. Yeah. It's just the way that this show has presented itself, like in the premiere 2 episodes, is that everything's going to keep us guessing until it's completely slapping us in the face that this is exactly what this character's intentions are. This is exactly what this character is. Like, until then, we're kind of in this limbo of, okay, we know the past of Norman Osborn. We know the character of Norman Osborn, but is this universe going to be just different enough where Norman Osborn has, good intentions? Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just, that's what's so interesting. That's kind of the interesting fact about this series is they can shift stuff just enough to throw us all off of, what we're used to about, the other Spider-Man mediums type of thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's what's really cool. I can't wait for the next 3 episodes. Yeah.
Yeah, you don't get an actor like Coleman Domingo to play Norman Osborn without him doing some pretty wild stuff. So I feel like they're going to do some pretty crazy stuff with Norman this season. I'm excited for it.
Right. I'm here for it. I'm here for everything. The Easter eggs for MCU stuff. I'm here for, seeing appearances of other characters and just seeing the little differences that make up this universe versus the MCU universe that we're used to and stuff like that. So as we always say, that's what we think. Let us know in the comments below. What did you think of the first 2 episodes of Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man? And what do you think is going to happen next this season? Next season, season 3, there are no wrong answers. The sky is the limit on what we can end up seeing, what subtle differences could be there, what major differences could be there. There are no wrong answers right now after the first 2 episodes. And as always, don't forget, like, subscribe, and turn on notifications to hear about all of our latest audio and video podcast releases. Bye, everybody!
Poppin' Off presents That Recap Show.